Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Risa Groux. Risa Groux, CN, is a functional nutritionist and certified autoimmune coach in private practice in Newport Beach, California. She has always been passionate about nutrition and good health. Risa was so concerned about purity that she made her children's very own baby food from scratch. Today, she is passionate about cooking and creating healthy, nutritious food. She works with a wide array of clients, from professional athletes, adults, and kids, to The Biggest Loser from season 4. Risa works with issues like diabetes, autoimmune disease, cancer, digestion, thyroid, and hormone imbalances, to name a few. Risa firmly believes that the body can heal itself with whole foods we obtain from the earth, and sees living proof of that in her office each and every day. She looks at root causes using functional nutrition guidelines, blood and stool tests, and knows that weight loss is a side effect of wellness. I really enjoyed talking with Risa today. She has also been featured on Good Day LA, Hallmark's Home and Family Channel, and recently Good Morning America. And today we covered so much. This was power-packed. I know all of my listeners love getting good information on their health. Risa really takes a deep dive into underlying causes of autoimmune disease, thyroid issues, congested liver, so many things that don't just attribute to exercising and eating right. And also we talked about having adrenal fatigue, which so many of us can have and not recognize. And it was great. Today we talked about stress and inflammation. So much. This was power packed. Did I say that already? Power packed. And we also got into the 6 most popular mainstream diets, including paleo, ketogenic, FODMAP, autoimmune, vegan, low lectin. So much today, and what the benefits and the drawbacks of each are. Risa talked a lot about different tests we could run and underlying conditions that we may not recognize, the benefits of detoxification, why we should do it regularly, common drivers of disease. Oh gosh, there was just so much today, you guys. Just steps necessary to identify and begin to reverse common chronic health issues, or why you may not be losing weight. And it may have something to do with what you eat. It could have something to do with unbalanced blood sugar or insulin resistance. So this was, again, I'm going to use the 2 words, power packed. So without further ado, let's tune into this episode with Risa Groux. I am so excited to welcome Risa Groux to the Sisterhood of Sweat today. Welcome.
Thank you, Linda. It's great to be here.
Well, we may hear some airplanes today, you guys. Risa is near the airport, but she's also near the beach, and you can't beat that. How's the weather out there in California?
It's pretty typical, beautiful day here. The sun is usually always out, so it's nice.
And I imagine what I found to be true, because I did some interning with Yoga Fit a long time ago. I've been teaching yoga for like over 20 years.
Wow.
And it was always when I went to visit Hermosa Beach and Newport, I would go to all these little healthy spots that they had. I feel like it's in the warmer weather, you're not covering everything up. And so you're a little more health conscious, I think.
Yeah. People generally tend to be pretty healthy here, and they value good food, but there's plenty of junk food to have here as well. So everybody loves, their In-N-Out burgers and all that.
Yeah, yes, yes, yes. I think in Ohio, when we get in the cold season, people want to stay in and hibernate and cuddle up in their warm blankets. And I think that's part of have a hot chocolate or two.
Yeah. And some. Yeah.
So today we're talking all things health with Risa. Risa is a functional medicine doctor, and you were diagnosed once upon a time with an autoimmune disease that causes chronic inflammation and a host of all types of issues. Tell us how you found yourself to be in that situation and what you did about it and how it brought you to where you are right now.
Okay, great question. First of all, I am a functional nutritionist, and I do functional nutrition, which is basically following functional medicine guidelines. That's what I've been trained to do. So I look at extensive lab work and stool testing to determine what somebody's health status is. And I always say I'm not really good at playing darts with the lights off and I cannot see the target. So I need the data so I can see where the blood sugar is and the thyroid and the inflammation and liver and all those important things. And I was diagnosed with hypothyroid when I was trying to get pregnant with my second child. We conceived no problem first time around, and then I had several miscarriages and just couldn't conceive for my second child, and ended up at a fertility specialist who did blood work, and they determined that I was hypothyroid, meaning my thyroid was an underachiever. It wasn't producing a lot of thyroid hormone. So I didn't get a lot of direction. I just got a pill and I was told to take it every day for the rest of my life. And that just didn't sit well with me. So I did a lot of research, and this was a long time ago. So it's not readily available, but I did a ton of research and realized, why is it that my thyroid is not working? And I wanted to find out the why and how to restore it. And so through the years, I did that. And then I was able to conceive my second child. And after that pregnancy, I did it naturally. And after that, I went into a state of Hashimoto's, which is very common when we have some kind of a hormone change, whether it be pregnancy or menopause. You're susceptible to becoming autoimmune with thyroid and other autoimmune diseases. So I started diving into Hashimoto's and figuring out, why is it that my body is attacking my thyroid gland, and how do I stop it and reverse this? So I did extensive research, and I basically compiled a list of root causes, which I had never seen ever before. I'd never seen any reasons why you would get autoimmune. So I compiled my own list together, and I went through every single solitary root cause. Of course, I had every single one of them, and whether they were overload of mercury in the system, which I had. It took me almost a year to chelate that mercury out of my system. An active Epstein-Barr virus, which I did have, MTHFR, a gene mutation, which I did have, which nobody ever tested me. And one of the side effects of MTHFR is miscarriages and infertility. And all I needed to do was take the right B vitamin for that. And who knew? And then some dietary changes and some lifestyle changes, but I did stool testing to look for pathogens, which I did have as well. So I went down that whole checklist and discovered what those root causes are. And once I did, I have been able to start reversing it. And to date, I'm about 10 points away from completely getting out of the state of Hashimoto's, when I started at 1,400 points away. So I've taken me a long, long time, but I have been very diligent and consistent, and I eat according to what I should, and I take supplements for what I should, and my body is naturally healing. Imagine that.
I love that. I love that. My good friend Andrea Beeman talks a lot about healing herself from Hashimoto's. Mm-hmm. And so I love hearing about natural healing that we can get a hold of today. Mm-hmm. What type of steps did you take then what natural steps to start healing your thyroid of Hashimoto's?
So I went down that checklist and I addressed every single one of those things. There are some parasites that I ended up having, well, one in particular, but there are several that can be the root cause of Hashimoto's. So I took care of that. I had very, very elevated levels of cardiac health markers. And so I ended up going to a natural periodontist, and I brought my stool test with me, and they said, oh yeah, these are salivary pathogens. And we ended up doing an MRI and found out that I had an abscess that had been growing around a root that was left there when I had my wisdom teeth removed 23 years prior. And I never felt anything. It didn't feel like there was anything there. I never had pain, nothing. And it had grown, it had subsided into my jaw. And so I had some jaw surgery and just had that removed. And then we started to see the numbers really going down after that. But it was a collective effort to check off every one of those things on the list. I removed gluten entirely from my diet. I removed dairy for the most part. I do dabble in a little bit of goat or sheep's milk on rare occasion. But for the most part, I took that out. I refrained from any soy or soy products. And those are all things that will cause enlargement of the thyroid. They will, they block thyroid medications. They can hinder some iodine absorption and things that we need for optimal thyroid health. So I make sure I'm really fastidious about getting enough sleep, and really watching what I eat, and taking care of stress.
How do we know how much iodine we should take? We could take too much, correct?
Correct. So I don't ever advise taking iodine with Hashimoto's. There's a lot of studies that show that that is not a good thing to do. We naturally get iodine from our diet. I eat a lot of fish, so it's in natural fish products, seaweed, things like that. So we get it naturally. The only time that I would recommend supplementing with iodine is if you do not have Hashimoto's. It is really conclusive that there are no antibodies, and that you test for it, and that you are low. But most people don't really need to take it. You get enough in dietary sources, and it's not good with Hashimoto's. So it's rare that I give iodine.
And I also suffered from having toxic mercury in my system. Very similar was they used to implant the fillings under the gum.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't caught on your normal x-ray at the dentist.
Right.
And so I went to a biological dentist to see about having my fillings, all of my mercury fillings, abated the right way, because there's a right and a wrong way to take them out. You don't want to make your problem worse.
Exactly.
And that's where she found that. So she's like, I used to feel like I was being poisoned every weekend. I would feel by the end of the week like somebody had poisoned me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that leaching into my bloodstream. Yep. And it's one of the most toxic. The sulfuric mercury is one of the most toxic substances. And so getting those abated out and doing the oral chelation, because that does slow down your thyroid 100% if you have too much mercury in your body.
For sure.
And your metabolism. Yes, and your energy and everything just kind of feels zapped.
Fog, a lot of yeah.
I'm wholeheartedly, I think you can't always find those things out through mainstream medicine. So, going to a functional nutritionist, a functional medicine doctor, running tests, and doing things maybe outside of the norm, I think is key. How do you think functional nutritionists differ from traditional nutritionists and dietitians?
Well, I think vastly different. So there's different sects of nutrition, basically. There's the registered dietitian, which basically follows a very much of the government food pyramid. They really focus on low fat but they're all about carbs and sugar, not, moderation. I would say that they are, but they're a little bit more about carbs and and they're okay with sugar in moderation. That's really what they do. Everything's fine in moderation, but they like a lot of low fat typically. And then there are regular nutritionists that you can go to, and they will give you a meal plan or tell you what foods that you should be eating. And functional, which is what I do, is I am all about root causes. I'm looking at why is it that we feel tired every day? Why is it that we have headaches? Why is it that we don't poop every day? That is not right. We should be going. Why is it that we're getting headaches? That's another one. I just don't understand how people live day to day to day. And why is it that we're bloating and we have gastric upset a lot? So those are things that I am looking at the why. The other thing I do in functional is I look for prevention. So when I get labs, I'm looking at a more narrow reference range, where labs have a very, very wide reference range. And a lot of people don't know this, but every lab reevaluates their reference ranges pretty much quarterly. And so what they do is they move them according to what's coming in. So if you're going to a lab that is showing a ton of thyroid, they're going to move that range so that range looks a little bit more normal, right? So we don't move ranges, right? They recently, a few years ago, moved the range for cholesterol. It's always been 185 to 200, always, for years and years and decades. And now they moved it to 99 to 169, which is unconscionable to me. Cholesterol is not the devil. It's a messenger system. We need it. We cannot conjugate hormones or vitamin D without it, amongst other things. And so we don't want it to, it's not a golf score. We don't want it to be at 99. That is not a good number. We will not function well without cholesterol. If your cholesterol goes high, that usually is indicative of blood sugar dysregulation, thyroid dysregulation, or liver congestion or gallbladder congestion. So find out why that cholesterol is moving. It's not a pill for an ill paradigm. That you do not have high cholesterol because you were born with a deficiency in statins. That is not why. I get really frustrated I deal with a lot of young people with anxiety. I deal with older people with anxiety too, but young people have a lot of anxiety. And I was on yesterday a Zoom with somebody that I work with in another state who is on 3 medications, a young girl. And she said, I don't feel well on these medications. And I said, let's get to the root of it. What is going on that you're creating all this anxiety? So we've just started that ball rolling, and she's just starting to wean off some medication. But it is, once we do that paradigm of medication, then we just keep adding more because we get side effects and we block tons of nutrients from these medications. So it causes more problems. There's just more holes in the boat as a result of all these medications. So it's crazy to me. So I'm always looking at a tighter reference range. The other thing that labs do is they discard the top 2.5% and they discard the bottom 2.5%. So we're looking at 95% of the population that they receive. I actually tested this with my son. He had to get labs done, and we went to the exact same building, 2 different labs, but the same building in a span of about, I think it was 2 months. And I went and I sat down and I went fine tooth comb with each reference range, and some were the same and some a little bit and some differed a lot. So it really is a thing. So functional nutrition or functional medicine ranges do not move. The other thing that I do is I look at the body as an interconnected unit. So if the headaches are happening, it's not a problem in the head, probably it's a problem somewhere else. It's not different appendages, different body parts. They're all interconnected, and they all talk to each other. So it's a system problem, and you've got to address the symptom.
So you said earlier a lot of things. I'm going to jump back to where you talked about the liver, because that's one of that's our biggest fat burning organ, and it's pretty important. It filters the blood. It does a lot of things. So when it's congested, is not going to do all of those things as well. So how do we get it uncongested? Is that part of detoxing? What do you do for people?
So exactly. I am a huge fan of cleaning out the garage all the time, right? How do you park your car in a garage that is filled with crap, right? So we have to have that liver working optimally. I love that you know that. And so I have a detox, the Risa Nutrition or the RGN detox, and it's 2 weeks, 14 days. It's collagen protein. So you're getting tons of protein with antioxidants and amino acids that help open up pathways 1 and 2. You're eating food. So you have 2 shakes a day, and then you're eating when you're hungry. It is not about starvation. Detoxing is nothing to do with starvation. And let's just talk about juice cleanses for a minute. There is no fiber in them. They take the fiber out. How are you going to get anything out of it?
High sugar.
It's high sugar. It's, and then plus they extract it days before. It's not organic most of the time. And so you're having a very expensive, very pretty sugar bottle, right? That's what you're having. So it's not detox. You need fiber to detox things out of the system. It has to bind to something, right? So we have to, and you need certain nutrients to pull those toxins that live in fat cells and fat tissues. This is why we lose weight. People love my detox because they lose weight, but I always say it's not a weight loss program. This is a wellness program. And the side effect of wellness is losing weight. That's what I do in my office all the time. We don't put anybody on diets here. We just eat according to what you should be eating, according to your health status. And next thing you know, you're losing weight. If you've got a fire in the basement, if you're in a state of inflammation, if you're in a state of attack, nobody's going to want to let go any resources, right? So you've got to quell that inflammation, quell that attack that's going on, and then the body will be happy to let go of what it doesn't need, right?
100%. Oh my gosh. You're preaching to the choir today about the inflammation. I was competing at the height of my competing. Let's see, I was almost 58, and I went through menopause. And I was pushing it because I sensed maybe the fitness flying across the stage was going to come to an end soon, which was, I was pushing it so hard. And the thing is, my body went into like a storm of inflammation, and I held on to, my body wanted to hold on to fat. It wanted to hold on to everything. It's relaxed now. I'm good, and I'm almost back to my normal me. Good. But I had all of these injuries because of it.
Yeah.
Because my cortisol was shooting through the roof.
Yeah.
And so I learned all about stress and inflammation and how that can really do more harm than good to our bodies, our physiques, and our health.
Yeah. There's 5 reasons why we don't lose weight. Number 1 is blood sugar dysregulation. If you've got diabetes, prediabetes, insulin resistance, you're going to have a tough time. Number 2, thyroid. If your thyroid's dysregulated, that's your metabolism, that's your fat burner, that's very difficult to lose weight. Number 3 is sex hormone imbalance. You just talked about that, right? When you have a change in your sex hormones, if you're out of balance, there is no way. Your estrogen's through the roof, there's no way. Number 4 is cortisol. You talked about that too. That's our stress hormone, right? That's a huge one. I get so many people coming in here who are so stressed out and they cannot lose weight, and they're so frustrated because they're earning it. But you're holding on to cortisol. Yeah, there's no way. Your body thinks you are in a state of crisis. And the 5th reason why we do not lose weight is we have a toxic buildup. That liver is pissed. You might have fatty liver or non-alcoholic fatty liver, or you might just have a fine liver, but you are storing and accumulating tons and tons of toxins. So get rid of the toxins and you will see the weight comes off like that.
Oh my gosh, you are talking about so many important things today. And I like the whole talk about inflammation because it's like the hidden killer that we don't recognize automatically. But also I was used to a certain amount of stress. I was used to being in fight or flight mode, as an adrenaline junkie, an athlete that likes to push my envelope and the risks. And so I think my coach, my competition coach, helped me to recognize I had to start writing my stress levels, my rest, my sleep, all of the things, and recognize when my stress was high because I wasn't recognizing it, and learn how to work with the stress, because when you're no longer making estrogen, you are calling on more cortisol. And so learning how to kind of dial all those things in, and equally what you said about insulin resistance, having our blood sugar regulated, those things are key. Now, we can dial some of that in by having a healthy eating plan, but not all eating plans are the same. We shouldn't be on a cookie cutter. Explain to me some of the different popular mainstream plans and how we can identify maybe the benefits and drawbacks of each one.
Great question. So that's why I wrote my book, Food Frame. And the reason is because not every diet type is right for every person. Everybody listening to this has a friend who lost 42 pounds on keto and they tried it and they lost 2. Or they've done Weight Watchers or Lindora or whatever the diet is, right? And it isn't a diet. We are made to eat food. This is our fuel source. We just need to know which foods are right for us because we all have different genetics. We all have different chromosomes. We all have different health statuses. So we should be eating according to those health statuses. So my philosophy is I always start everybody off with my detox because it just kind of cleans the slate. It cleans out the garage so we can now start parking the car in there, right? So once you clean out for 2 weeks, and yes, you will lose weight. But again, it's, intended for wellness. And then after that, we take the Food Frame quiz and it's on my website. Everybody's welcome to take that. Or if you're working with me in my office, I do all your blood test and your stool test to determine what your health status is. So I look at all 4 markers of blood sugar. So I want to see, is there insulin resistance? Is there prediabetes? Then I look at all 9 markers of the thyroid to find out, are we sluggish? And all those things that we talked about, the liver and the kidney, and I'm looking at all the inflammation markers, which I don't see coming in from doctors' labs a lot. Vitamin D levels, and I test everybody for an MTHFR gene. That's our that gene mutation that we have. That's very, very common. That most people have. Most people do.
MFR.
MFR, exactly. Yeah. Or some people call it some other things. But anyway, so so it's really important to know what's the landscape, what is your health status. And so from there we have basically 6 different options, right? Paleo is the one that I think has the broadest appeal to most people. It's anti-inflammatory, it helps regulate blood sugar, it's easy to do, you can travel with it, it's not crazy absurd, and that really is for anybody with systemic inflammation, anybody with blood sugar dysregulation, and really almost anybody. Even if you're autoimmune, you can do paleo. It's less restrictive than some of the others. Then we have the AIP, that's the autoimmune protocol, and that is really an elimination diet. So that's great for somebody for 30 to 90 days. The longer you go, the better off you'll be. And that is for somebody, if somebody comes in my office and they're in a full flare-up or they've just recently been diagnosed, I am for sure putting them on AIP. That is really focused on quelling the inflammation. Yes, your blood sugars are going to drop as a side, but it really is about the inflammation because, as you said, inflammation is the driver of disease. So that's a little bit more restrictive. That is basically like paleo, but they remove nuts, seeds, eggs, nightshades, and no alcohol, no coffee. So it's a bit restrictive, but there's plenty of food to do. I've done that myself and I felt great on it. Most people do. Then we have low lectin, and low lectin can also be very much for people on autoimmune. So I would say start with AIP and then transfer either to low lectin or to paleo. But if you are, let's say you have rheumatoid arthritis and we're still trying to find out the root cause, which I typically see a pathogen that causes rheumatoid arthritis. Time and time again, I see it. So once we kill the pathogen, the rheumatoid arthritis typically goes away. But so if
now, when you say a pathogen, can this be parasites?
Oh, sure. It could be parasites. In rheumatoid arthritis, it's Prevotella species or Prevotella copri. It's a pathogen. It's a bacteria that we have that lives in our intestines. And if it's high enough, if it populates enough, then we tend to see rheumatoid arthritis.
And so how do you get rid of that? Just taking like a parasite cleanse, or what do you do?
Yeah, so I kill it with natural, what I call natural antibiotics. So all herbs and foods that will kill. It's a little longer than a 10-day antibiotic course, but you do not jack up your gut in the meantime. So we don't have to start from scratch. But we do end up killing depending on how high it is. And I test everybody for stool testing. So I need to know what's inside. tons of people have H. pylori and lots of people have.
Right. I mean, your gut also is a role, is playing a role in all of that. If you, what you're lacking, and then we're saying all these pathogens.
Who you're hosting. Yeah. Who's coming to
Okay.
the building. Yeah. What I do in my office is I look at systemic inflammation and gut health. Those are the foundational issues. So
Love that.
lectin is great for people with autoimmune. It definitely is geared towards anti-inflammation. And yes, it will stabilize blood sugars as well. It's a little bit freeing from some foods, but it also is really restrictive from others. And then we have the low FODMAP. So low FODMAP stands for fermented oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So in English, those are basically certain types of carbohydrates that we find a lot in prebiotic foods like garlic and onion, or in cruciferous vegetables, goitrogens, things like that, that feed a bacteria that accidentally parked itself in the small intestine instead of the large intestine. So these foods will feed it, and they're very water absorbent. So they create a lot of water and they start to bloat. So people with chronic bloating, anybody with SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, anybody with IBS or IBD, irritable bowel syndrome or irritable bowel disease, or anybody with chronic diarrhea or chronic constipation would be great on the SIBO, on the low FODMAP diet. This is very portion restrictive, not calorie restrictive. So you can have one asparagus the first week, and then the third week you can have two. And but you can have a lot of animal protein, and certain vegetables you can have, certain fruits you can have, and you can have some grains on this as well. You can have rice and things like that. But every body is different. So I say that all the time. I work with people with SIBO all the time, but I'm working with somebody right now. And I say, if quarter avocado works for you, then have it. If it doesn't, don't. If a half works for you, great. The more restrictive you are in that beginning, this is also an elimination diet, 30 to 90 days. I say go very strict at the beginning, because you want to starve this bacteria so it dies. If you feed it a little, it'll just continue to grow and stay, and you just want to kill it entirely.
So you kind of starve the bacteria, which is almost like, I mean, when people have a lot of yeast, they've got to starve it from all that sugar. Exactly. So they get some die off.
Yeah.
Is that the main way to get rid of it? Or do you have things that you have them take?
SIBO is very difficult to kill. So
yeah, that's almost too much probiotic in your upper gut kind of area, isn't it?
Yeah, it's prebiotics that feed it, but it's a bacteria that just parks itself in the small intestines versus the large. So it's hard to get to. So with SIBO, and that's
I know someone that had it. So
that's the one on the list that I had. I didn't know, nobody tested me, nobody even talked about it until I figured it out myself. And sure enough, I had that one too. So there's 3 ways that you can handle SIBO. One is an antibiotic called rifaximin or xifaxan. Very expensive, about $1,600, and very difficult to get through your insurance company. Very difficult to even get a script for it. The gal that I'm working with now finally got it. It's been about 4 weeks, and her insurance company just wouldn't pick it up. So she's been fighting for 4 weeks and finally got it approved. So that is a great start. For some people, I would say maybe 10% people, it will help completely. It will kill it. But most SIBO is very difficult to kill. So I think everything, I'm going to be loose with this number, but it's about 70% successful. So that's why I say rifaximin or xifaxan and a low FODMAP diet, or so it depends how severe you have. I've worked with some really severe people. We've done that. And then we jump on to my supplement protocol, which is a protocol for 2 weeks on, 1 week off, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, and 2 weeks on. So 6 altogether, but you have to kill it and then wait till it regrows, kill it again for any regrowth, and kill that along with a low FODMAP. And then the other one is the elemental diet. And that one I really don't recommend unless you are severe. I've had 2 people do elemental diet. I tried it myself and I can do anything. I had a really tough time with this. It's just a liquid protein. It's not even a shake. It's a liquid protein that you have to drink for 14 to 21 days and no food at all. So I don't really recommend that one. And SIBO's tough. It depends what type of SIBO. It can get very technical, and it can be very recurring. So it's very important to eat a low FODMAP sort of diet. But you have to base it on what works for you, because not everybody is the same. And then we have good old keto, right? We love keto. Keto is where you change your fuel source from carbohydrates to fat. And it's very effective for many, not for a lot. Women have a very tough time with keto, but not all women. Some women can thrive on that. You have to do 70 to 90% of your daily intake in fats, and not even good fats. You can eat crappy fats and you're good to go. So I don't really love it for that, but you can live on the cheese and meat diet basically, and very difficult to get enough fiber in here. So because all vegetables have carbohydrates of some sort, so very difficult to get enough. And no carbohydrates, no fruit, or basically less than 5% of your daily intake should be carbohydrates. So it really turns out to be net carbs, no more than 20 per day, no matter who you are, basically.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So very, very restrictive, and it's very difficult to travel. It's very difficult to stay in the state of ketosis. So I don't recommend that for longer than 3 months. I always say take a bit of a break, but I can't tell you how many people, me included, have gone on keto, and I can't get into the state of ketosis. I would urinate on a ketone stick, and I just could never quite get into ketosis no matter what I did. So some people just have a tough time getting into ketosis. And then the people that are not good for this are anybody with any fat malabsorption. And of course, most people don't test for that. I do.
Or no gallbladder.
Or I was just going to say, or no gallbladder. That is exactly the person who knows they are not good for this. You can process your fat. So if you have a tough time with fats to begin with, this is not for you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it does. It's very good, very succinct, and successful for people with blood sugar issues, severe blood sugar issues. And it can be good for some people who have a certain type of epilepsy. So it depends on who you are. But again, I would just
or what about menopausal women that are, they're holding on to fat so they can keep estrogen because they're losing all their estrogen. I kind of find things that I've read is putting in the good dietary fat a little bit more, maybe not quite to the 70%, but it seems like it helps to keep, I think it's good for menopausal women.
Yeah, it can be, but again, it also,
not all.
A lot of studies that show if you have a lot of cortisol production, if you have adrenal fatigue, if you're an adrenal person, not so good for you. So try it. And I would encourage people to try it. Be really strict, because you got to get into the state of ketosis. It takes a few days. You might get the keto flu, where you just feel like you have the flu for a few days, but it passes. And if you can get through that and do it, and you might be very successful with it, but not everybody is.
I love that you brought up adrenal fatigue. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people suffer from it and they don't recognize it. So can you call out the signs of adrenal fatigue and then give us a few solutions?
So I see a ton of adrenal fatigue, and I test people for it if I have suspicion that they have adrenal issues. I'm working with a young girl, high school girl right now, who just cannot get to sleep. She cannot get to sleep. She's an athlete. She works out. She eats great, and she just cannot get to sleep. So I could tell she's very type A. She's an extremely good student. She's a very good athlete. So I did an adrenal stress index test for her, and her cortisol, the trajectory, basically cortisol production starts high in the morning. That's what gets us out of bed, right? Throughout the day, it starts to dip down. And when the sun goes down, the melatonin production in our bodies naturally start producing. And then our cortisol drops. That's what gets us to sleep. If you are not falling asleep and you're not, home, you're not eating a bowl of cereal right before or a big bowl of ice cream right before you're going to bed, then chances are it's cortisol. So that's a really big sign of cortisol. And if you wake up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep, it's either blood sugar or cortisol, depending on sort of what time you wake up and a bunch of other things. But that's why I look at labs to assess that. The other thing that we see with cortisol is when we look at labs, your reverse T3. Reverse T3 basically means that you are reversing, you're taking your free hormone. That's what helps you lose weight. That's what makes you feel good. That's what helps you poop. That's what helps quell anxiety, hair thinning, nails brittle, all that. We need T3. That's our active thyroid hormone. And when we reverse it because we have cortisol. So if you have excess cortisol, I see it right there on the lab, that reverse T3, if that's high, and I've seen it really high. I mean, you may be, if it's really, really high, I'm going to test you for Addison's where you're overproducing cortisol. But most people are not Addison's. They're just stressed. We're stressed. We don't get unplugged. We don't take time off. We don't have enough fun. We work too much. So some ways to naturally balance cortisol is Epsom salt baths. That's a wonderful way. It's high doses magnesium. I always say 2 cups or more for 20 minutes or more. And I have that young girl doing that right now. I've got her in the bathtub. I'm trying to get her in there almost every night. And I've got her on a ton of adrenal stuff to bring down her cortisol. You don't want to exercise at night. That's going to increase your cortisol. I mean, occasionally it won't, but if you're doing a really tough spin class and lifting weights at 10 o'clock at night, I drive by the gym sometimes, those 24-hour gyms on my way home on 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I think those people are not going to sleep anytime soon.
It's too late to be.
Late. It's way too late. Yeah. Unless they're staying up and, their clock is different. They're working different hours, but that is just very late. So Epsom salt handles that, and exercise balances out cortisol. Not too much. If you're autoimmune, don't go hardcore. And so everybody has to do what they have to do, but in the morning and some cardio, and like you were talking about earlier, you can't push it and over exercise. Doesn't help anything. It helps us hold on to things rather than let it go.
Right, right. Because you can drive yourself into that state where your body thinks it's being attacked.
Right.
And then it's going to do whatever it needs to protect.
Exactly.
And so you could get stuck in that storm, for a little while. And
exactly.
So I love all that you're talking about today. I love that you're talking about the adrenal fatigue as well, because I see that being a major issue, which it could also affect your thyroid, right?
Absolutely.
Fatigue.
Absolutely. It's all connected. It's all part of the endocrine system, your sex hormones, your thyroid, and your adrenal glands. So those are all in your endocrine system. And once you're out of balance with those, it takes a while to get it back to balance, but you can. You just have to know. You can't guess. You have to know, and then act accordingly. So do that through food and supplements.
So it's more than just what we eat and our exercise. There's so much to our bodies, and this is so fascinating today. And you brought up something else that I think a lot of people don't really know about, the nightshade vegetables, that you could be sensitive to them. So what are some of the nightshades, and what would we be seeing if we were sensitive to nightshade vegetables?
So if you're autoimmune, or especially if you have rheumatoid arthritis, you have fibromyalgia, any one of those, and you're in a flare-up state, you are in pain, your joints hurt, your muscles hurt, I would say for sure, take out the nightshades. So nightshades consist of tomatoes, all tomatoes of any kind, potatoes, all potatoes, with the exception of yams and sweet potatoes are technically not in the potato family. I know that sounds silly, but it's true. So any red potatoes, purple potatoes, white potatoes, all those, but yams and sweet potatoes, you're fine. Eggplant is another one, and peppers of any kind. So all peppers except for black pepper. So we're talking jalapeno.
Except for what pepper?
Black pepper.
Black. I've never had a black pepper.
Well, no, like salt and pepper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know you're thinking black, like bell pepper. Yeah.
I was
any kind of jalapeno or chili pepper or paprika or any of those things, even just a little, I would just say no peppers at all. And then goji berries. Those are all the nightshades. So those are for people who are inflamed. You should notice a big change there for sure.
Now, how can we boost our immune system naturally? I mean, we've really been concerned about that the last 2 years. And actually, I got flagged for my very first time on Instagram when I was just typing in exercise boost the immune system, just even saying immune. So, but how do we boost our immune system?
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways we can. So 75 to 85% of our immune system is produced in our gut. 75 to 85%. So we need to have that good gut, right? So we make sure we have good probiotics, make sure our microbiome is good, make sure we don't live on sugar. Sugar eats white blood cells. Our white blood cells are our protector. Even 1 tablespoon of sugar, I don't care if it's white sugar or
we're not just talking about candy, right? Explain where does sugar live and how many things?
It's everywhere. So it's even coconut sugar or maple syrup or clean sugars, you know, so or crap sugars. It could be turbinado sugar or brown sugar. I don't care what kind of sugar, but it eats your white blood cells. So 1 tablespoon can affect your white blood cell count to up to 50% to 5 hours. So that's pretty bad, right? So my kids would tell you if they get sick, there's a little tickle in their throat, sugar is out, it's off the table. So that will just perpetuate that illness. And I go out of my way to just make sure there's no sugar, and we know sugar's everywhere. So that's a big one. To boost your immune system, vitamin D is incredibly important. I mean, incredibly important. So I take make sure I have very high levels of vitamin D, and your functional ranges are 80 to 100. You can even go to 120 if you're autoimmune, but I say 80 to 100 is where I aim for. I just got my labs back and I was a little over 100. I'm happy. I'm taking a little break for a couple of weeks and then I'll go back on my vitamin D, and you need vitamin D with K, like my D3 Ultra for absorption. And then sleep is huge for immunity. Sleep is huge. Zinc is really, really, really important in elderberry. I have my Immune Ultra. They're little lozenges. They taste like, somebody called them like Starburst, you know, Immune Starburst. And basically that's what they are. And it's just elderberry and zinc that we need for immunity. And of course, vitamin C helps too. So sleep, exercise, I'm going to give you that for sure. Eating high nutrient dense food. So lots of leafy greens where you're getting calcium and fibers and nutrients and good clean animal proteins. Good fats are absolutely going to lead the way for immunity.
I love that.
Yeah,
what other supplements do you recommend or that do you think are imperative for optimal health?
So I take copious amounts of glutathione. Glutathione is our master antioxidant. I have not gotten COVID the whole time. I have been around so many people with COVID. It's shocking. And glutathione is our master antioxidant. As we age, it's kind of like the female eggs. They leave the building and they're gone. So you have to keep inviting it back, especially as you age. So it helps protect us against oxidative stress. So oxidative stress is anything that wants to come into the body and create disease. So I take that since COVID, I've ramped it up a bit. I take 4 a day. And it's wonderful. So I'm a big fan of that for immunity, but just in general health. And then I'm all about anti-inflammatory. So I do turmeric, I do resveratrol, I do omega for heart health, brain health, and anti-inflammatory. And then vitamin D and vitamin B. My B Ultra is in methylated form, so it's a B complex. So you need all the B vitamins. So those are my standard everyday supplements that I take. And then I do stuff for blood sugar from time to time. I just want to make sure my berberine balance, that I'm stabilizing my blood sugar. And then I'll check my hormones to see what that is. So I'll go in and out of DHEA depending on what my labs say. And I have my adrenal reboot for my stress. When I'm stressed, I take adrenal reboot. And then I do collagen shakes every single solitary day. I love my collagen shakes. I have chocolate and vanilla. I put all my fat, my protein, my fiber in there, and I love it. Today I made one with tahini, which is a great source of fat, and lots of greens and some chia seeds, and it's good. It's good stuff.
Perfect. I love that. And collagen, of course, is good for nail, skin, and hair as well.
Exactly.
And like as we start to age, we lose collagen. So I could see the beauty of supplementing, collagen so that you can keep the nice skin. So
Exactly.
I love all this. This has been so great. You're a wealth of information. I can listen to you all day. I eat this stuff up. I love it. My listeners love any kind of a podcast. They're all about their health and boosting their immune systems. And I'm really excited for you and your book. Say the title again, and where can everybody get it?
It's called Food Frame. Diet is a 4-letter word, because I don't believe that diets fit all. I have a new course that I just released on thyroid health. It is everything you ever need to know about your thyroid, what to eat, what not to eat. It doesn't matter if you have a thyroid, if you have thyroidectomy, if you have nodules, if you have hypo, I cover it all. I'm really proud of it. I have taken everything that I've learned for years and put it into that course. So that is available on my website at Risa Groux Nutrition. My book is available on Amazon, on Target, Barnes and Noble, and on my website. And I really want to help people. I love watching people heal. There is no better job, in my opinion. And so the book I spent years and lots of hours just putting all my information in that book to help people find their way that they can heal.
And I love that. And where can we reach you on social media?
I'm at Risa Groux Nutrition on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest.
Perfect. And you have a discount for people on your course. And so they're going to go to your website, and the code is SOS10, you guys. We're going to put this in the show notes. So you're going to get a discount if you want to join in the course. And is this the thyroid course?
It's actually, the discount is for the detox,
the detox. Everybody needs that.
Yeah, exactly. You start off with the detox, but yes. And then and once you sign up for the course, there are discounts in the course for supplements as well. But yes, the SOS 10 is for your listeners for the detox, the RGN detox for 14 days. And then the course is available online on my website, or you can do the link in the bio in all my social media stuff.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat. Make sure to check out the discount in our show notes. Bye, everyone.